Are you frustrated with the small talk? Do you wish like it didn't exist at all? Or maybe you just stink at small talk, but you're slowly realizing, whichever camp you fall into, that it's like a necessary part of life that's not going to go away no matter how you feel about it. In this video, we're going to talk about how to get better at small talk, but not just how to get better at small talk. If you do the things I'm talking about, I can promise you it will move from being like the bane of your existence to something that you actually enjoy. And I know for my introverts out there, that's a big promise, but I think we can deliver on it. Let's get started right now. All right, point number one. Here's what I would tell you. If you found this video, you probably Googled something like, how do I get better at small talk? How do I do small talk better? What are some execution stuff? And I think you need to establish, like, what do you mean by better? Can you picture in your mind what being better would look like? My daughter said something one time, and I thought this was so helpful. She said, I went from feeling like I was scared to interact with people to wanting to be the person that was good at interacting with people. And she said that wasn't enough. I had to actually be curious about the other person. So I would maybe push back on getting better at it and say, like, what are your expectations? Like, for instance, are you expecting that when you go into, say you're an introvert and you like deep conversations, you just want to go into the deep end. Do you have some expectation that you're going to go into the grocery store and like really deeply connect with that person when you're in line? Because that's probably not going to happen. But at the same time, if you're going on a date, a small talk might be a means to an end. Like, I want to really deeply connect with my spouse, but we're probably going to like warm up and get going with small talk. Does this make sense? We have to have some sense of expectation for our small talk. And for me, context matters. That would probably be a separate video. But just understanding, like, it's not about being the kind of person that's good at small talk, but being good at small talk means, and we'll get to this in a minute, being curious and knowing how to connect with other people. And so you can watch the rest of this video if you want to actually connect with other people, because good small talk is a form of connection, small connections, and our small connections, they'll lead to bigger connections. And so if your intent is to actually connect with other people and not just use small talk as a way to like advance in your career, watch the rest of this video. I think it's going to be really helpful. I have something I want to give you for free, so I'm going to interrupt this video. If this video is a little rambly for you, and I suspect it might be, I've taken all of my tips for small talk and I've condensed them down into like 2 pages of a PDF. It does kick to some other videos that are like on intention and curiosity, stuff like that. Condensed versions of my course content. It's completely free, so if you're like, I'm not trying to buy anything from anybody right now, I'm overwhelmed by everybody trying to sell me something, it's free. So you can click the link below. It'll take you to a webpage. You can download it. Hopefully it's helpful. Get out there. Go talk to somebody. Like, you were meant to connect with people. So, all right, back to the video. The second thing I would tell you is that you need to build up your curiosity. Have you met somebody and they're in conversation and they just seem to never run out of anything to say? They just, like, an awkward lull comes and they can just fill it with a question. And it seems effortless to them. These are the kind of people that have a natural curiosity about them. And for a lot of people, they think, I couldn't be that person because I naturally feel awkward. I'm thinking about myself. I'm thinking about how it's awkward. I try to think about them, but I just can't generate any questions. This is a muscle that you can build just like you can build any other muscle. And so here's what I would tell you. When you're alone, when you're taking a walk through the park, when you're at the mall, or anywhere where there's a bunch of people, go out on Black Friday and don't shop for anything, just like people watch. And instead of judging, I want you to move from judging to curiosity. Like, a lot of times we like avoid projecting on people, like, well, I don't know what their situation is, so I'm not going to presume. I want you to privately presume, and then I want you to test your presumptions. So, right, somebody walks by, I'm at, I'm getting my tires worked on at a store or whatever. Somebody comes in and they got face tattoos, you know what I mean? And they're like really funny and winsome, and I'm very interested. Or maybe a mom comes in and she's got her kid and she seems short-tempered and she's talking about the price. I'm going to project on both of these people. I'm going to go, oh, this guy really had a rough season when he was, in his late teens and early 20s, and he got all these tattoos, but then like maybe he went through recovery And you might even be listening to this and say, Cole, that's so rude. I'm not going to do that. Be rude. Be rude in your mind. We're not going to say these things out loud, but what it's going to do is it's going to bring your assumptions about people to the forefront so that then you can question those assumptions, and those questions then can be crafted into really great ways to connect with people. So maybe that was his story. I think about the mom. Maybe she, maybe finances are tight at home. Maybe her husband just lost his job. Maybe this, maybe that. And I'm going to project all over it. And then I'm going to ask questions like, well, I wonder, now I'm going to take all those presumptions and I'm going to form them into questions like, hey, how is your morning going? Do you see where like deep things now start to connect to small talk conversation? Hey, how is your morning? Hey, do you have any other kids? We can start to move things into small talk conversations that are deep and meaningful. But first, we have to kind of think about all of their world. And so oftentimes I find we're so wrapped up in our own world. It's like the world is a stage and there's a spotlight on us and we're thinking about ourselves. And until we can move that spotlight off of ourselves and move it on to somebody else, we're going to continue to feel awkward. We're going to continue to try to be the type of person that has good conversations. And that's not going to help. So here's what I would tell you to do. Build your curiosity. It's a muscle. And I would build that curiosity through people watching and through slowing down and just like project, like assume about people, and then question your assumptions. And then I think if you do this over and over, and I've coached people in this and I've done it in my own life, you're going to start to get like better at generating questions. And then you're going to have questions that you can ask people that you've never, ever met before. Okay, number 3, and this is important. This is super important. Follow your curiosity. For a lot of people, they're going into conversations, and again, if your job is to be winsome, then what's going to happen is you're going to go into these conversations and you're going to be like trying to be that person, and you're going to just try to say things that connect with them, as opposed to actually following your curiosity. If somebody talks about something and you really, really, really don't care, don't ask. That's what people hate about small talk the most, is they feel like they have to talk about things they don't care about. But I would tell you that people are fascinating, and if you know how to ask good questions, you're going to learn how to draw out conversation that you actually care about. So that's maybe like, if you hate small talk because the conversation seems meaningless, that's my encouragement to you. If you get better at conversations, you're going to be able to draw out conversations from people and topics that both of you are interested in. And when you can build up your curiosity, when you get to curious, then you can get to connected, where both of you kind of feel like, I'm interested in this. That's when you're going to move from small talk to meaningful conversation. So let's get real practical. Somebody says, they say, yeah, we had a crazy morning. We were driving to ballet, and then the tire blew out, and then like I was yelling at the kids because they were making jokes about it, and then we had to wait on the side of the road, and now we're here, and man, we paid all this money for ballet, but now we're paying money for tires. There's a lot in that. We call them conversational threads in my course, but there's the fact that they do ballet, right? You could talk about ballet. You could talk about the emotion that she's feeling of frustrated. Man, that seems really frustrating. Like, it doesn't it feel like everything costs more lately? And you could try to like relate on that. She's talking about how she got upset with the kids. So I don't know if you have kids or if you've ever had kids, you could ask questions about that. There's a lot in there that maybe you're curious about, maybe you're not. If somebody asks, say somebody has a fishing hat on and, oh, hey, you got a fishing hat there. Do you like fishing? And they start talking about fishing, you might go, I don't care about fishing. But guess what? Somebody taught them how to fish, didn't they? Do you care about relationships? Perhaps you could ask questions about the relationships that led to the thing, right? I love fishing, so I think I have a fishing shirt on right now. So if somebody talked about fishing, I'd be like, what kind of fish do you fish for? What kind of, where do you go? Do you want to go sometime? Do you have a boat? But if you don't care about that at all, you might be like, how did you learn to fish? Was that really meaningful with your dad? What was your dad like? You could get off of fishing really quick if you learn to ask good questions. 4th, and this is going to seem odd coming from me, don't engage people when you just don't have the patience or the energy to have conversation. I know this seems so odd, but I am regularly impressed by people that they're grumpy and they're not into it, so they're not going to pretend to be. There's something about going, my bucket's empty right now, I'm not going to engage in small talk. And while I don't think you should be on your phone all the time, it's a nice, like some AirPods and your phone is a good way to just kind of tell the world, I'm gonna snip at you, I'm gonna bite at you, I'm gonna be awkward and weird, and I'd rather not damage my reputation by doing that. So a lot of times, if my bucket's empty, I'm gonna kind of isolate a little bit. I'm gonna be on my phone. I'm gonna listen to some music. I'm gonna do some work. I'm gonna do some like recharge, recovery, exercise, whatever your thing is. So pay attention to your context, pay attention to your buckets, and engage in small talk when it's meaningful to you. For a lot of people, it might not be so much that you're bad at small talk, it's that you're not going into conversations with the appropriate amount of energy, right? Does that make sense? You're drained from the day, and now you're just gonna go straight from a draining day to some networking thing that you have to go to. Look, if you know that thing is gonna take a lot out of you, you're gonna have to fill up your bucket so that when you go to it, you're not just frustrated and exhausted and having like frustrating, meaningless small talk. Does this make sense? So pay attention to your buckets and make sure that you're not pouring out in moments that it's not helpful. And finally, we kind of hinted on this in the curiosity piece, but learn to ask better questions. Like if I were to just give you in this video the basics of asking questions, because we could do, and we will do more videos on how to ask really great questions. The basics is don't ask people why, unless you're their teacher or their coach. Don't ask them why. They're going to feel defensive. For some of you, your parents, don't ask your kids why. That's why they're being defensive. People get defensive when we ask why, unless we're in a position to help them self-evaluate. So don't ask people why. Why'd you do that? Why'd you get that? Why are you wearing those? Use how and use what. How and what questions are naturally open-ended questions most of the time. They're going to lead to people having to share more, and when they share more, you're more likely to find something you're interested in, which then you can ask another open-ended question about, and before you know it, you're into something that you actually care about. Does this make sense? So learn to ask better questions. If you are on the internet and you're asking, how do I get better at small talk? My biggest thing I would tell you is be curious and then learn how to create good questions from that curiosity. If you can do that, that's gonna fix the bulk of your problem in small talk, because you're gonna find that you now know how to draw people out. You're gonna find that people are more interesting. Listen, they are more interesting than they're letting on. Most people are not sharing because you haven't asked them a good question and it's not a safe environment. And so finally, my last point is that lead the way. Share and create the small talk that you want to have. If you don't want to talk about the weather and small little things, don't stay there very long. You self-disclose something that's a little bit deeper. Don't ask the person in the conversation to create the culture of the conversation that you want. You set the tone, right? If you say, I want to talk about deeper things, you talk about deeper things. If you don't want to talk about deeper things, then stick to the weather. Stick to what you were cooking last night for dinner. Stick to the football game or whatever your kind of chosen thing is. But if you want to go deeper, you start. All right, I hope that was helpful for you guys. I am going to be creating more and more videos here on YouTube, so you can like and subscribe and do all that fun stuff. I do have an Instagram channel where I post a lot of short form content. So if you want little snippets of this kind of stuff, you can head over there and do that. Have a wonderful day. You're known and loved. You matter. And you need to be in conversations, because I bet you're fascinating and I bet you have something to say.